Testing audio for captions, testing audio for captions. 1, 2, 3, 4. The webcast will begin at 9 a.m. Testing captions for the webcast, testing captions for the webcast. Was there a mic on? Because I'm just starting to test now.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Joaquin Esquivel, Chair of the State Water Resources Control Board. Today is Tuesday, September 16th. It is 9:02 a.m., and I'd like to call this meeting to order. We'll be joined shortly by Vice Chair Doreen Diadamo, joined this morning as well by Board Member Sean McGuire, Board Member Laurel Firestone, and Board Member Nicole Morgan. We're joined this morning by Eric Oppenheimer, our Chief Executive Director, our two Chief Deputies, Karen Mogus and Eric Ekdahl, our Chief Counsel, Michael Loffer, our Clerk of the Board is Courtney Tyler, and assisting her this morning is Margie Argel and Biba Malatik. As you can see, this is a hybrid meeting, so we have both in-person and web components. If you're viewing us virtually, you're joining us through the Cal EPA webcast or the YouTube live webcast, but if you intend on commenting on any of today's items, you need to be on the Zoom platform. There is a link at the top of the agenda with instructions and a form to get onto the platform, but if you're having any challenges doing so, please do just email the clerk of the board at board.clerk@waterboards.ca.gov, and she can help get you onto the platform. Once you are on the platform, your camera will be off, you will be on mute until it is your turn to speak on the item you've indicated. For everyone in the room, good morning. Good to see you all. We're here in Sacramento in the California Environmental Protection Agency building. A few announcements for us here as well. Please do observe the exits. If we happen to have an emergency, we'll calmly file out to Cesar Chavez Plaza and await further direction. And if you intend on commenting on any of today's items, you need to be signed up. There is a QR code at the side of the room as well as a laptop. But if you're having any challenges signing up, please do just connect with the clerk of the board. She can help get you signed up. Once you are at the microphone, please do introduce yourself if you feel comfortable, any affiliation. And lastly, please here in the room, just let's silence our phones so we have an uninterrupted discussion today. With that, we can move on to public forum, as we always customarily do here at the water boards, an opportunity for folks to address the board on an item not currently agendized before the board. This morning, we'll start off hearing from Supervisor Aguirre. Good to see you this morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Paloma Aguirre. I am the Chair Pro Tem for the San Diego County Board of Supervisors and also the representative of District 1, which is the southernmost county in the state of California, representing 650,000 of our residents in the San Diego border region. Today, I want to share with you a very important and concerning update regarding the Tijuana River pollution that is impacting my community. Next slide, please. This crisis, this emergency, is the biggest public health and environmental crisis in the Western Hemisphere, hands down. And I'm going to share with you the latest information we have from a number of different studies and scientists that have confirmed this to be. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of background. The Tijuana River watershed is shared between the U.S. and Mexico. 3/4 of it are in Mexico, 1/4 in the U.S. The river flows south to north, comes across the border, exiting through the Tijuana River National Estuary Research Reserve, or estuary, south of Imperial Beach. Next slide, please. Has the capacity to impact us from Imperial Beach all the way now to Point Loma. So this has now not only become a coastal water crisis, but also an airborne crisis. Next slide. And just to give you a little bit of overview of where the infrastructure that currently exists, we have several different sewage treatment plants in Mexico. There is San Antonio de los Buenos, which you see south of the border. That has been completely rehabilitated started by the Andrés Manuel López Obrador president and now by the Sheinbaum administration. It is treating 18 million gallons per day of wastewater from the western side of Tijuana, which is going directly into the ocean. And as you may know, our international wastewater treatment plant, which is located in San Isidro, California, has a capacity of treating 25 million gallons per day. We all fought very hard to secure, through the leadership of our congressional delegation, $600 million to upgrade it and double its capacity. Through the Trump administration, 10 million gallons have already been expedited, so now it's treating 35 million gallons per day. But none of these plants are treating river flow. And that's the crux of my conversation today. Next slide. Over 100 billion gallons of wastewater have come across our border since 2018. That's 100 billion gallons of wastewater. And this is not regular sewage water. This is residential wastewater. It is industrial waste, including volatile organic compounds, heavy metals, plasticizers, pathogens, and everything in between. Next slide, please. Of course, it has coastal impacts. We've had over 1,300 consecutive days of beach closures. On the right, you'll see the map from the borderline all the way to Point Loma is where the coastal water impacts have kept our beaches closed. Obvious economic impacts are concerning. We have lost a lot of revenue because of reduced tourism and visitors, and our local small mom and pop shops have been impacted, some even closing. Next slide. Next slide. There we go. But today, what I want to really emphasize is the air crisis that exists because of the Tijuana River. As you see on the bottom right of this slide, you'll see a white, snowy looking spot in the riparian area of the river. That is a satellite image of the foam that this river is producing. You can see from space. So that is visible from space. And as you all know, any body of water with foam is a polluted body of water. There should never be foam in a body of water. And as you see, this river crosses under the roadway of Saturn Boulevard. And there is a culvert there. There's about 4 pipes that are about 4 feet wide each that are meant to flood control under that road, because to maintain access to the river valley. But unfortunately, that creates increased turbulence of the river, which causes a lot of these gases to be released. And the concern is these gases are being released in less of half a mile distance from schools and daycares. So as you can see, the hotspot and the red dot, that's where Saturn Boulevard is. And the red circle is where all of the schools and daycares are located. Next slide, please. Next slide. So we had last summer 4 different universities. We had UC Riverside, UT Austin, San Diego State University, and UC San Diego testing soil, water, and air samples. And last year, what they determined, and this has already been published in Science, in the peer review or Journal of Science, that the levels that we were seeing between the hours of 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. were pretty much 100 or more times above the California ambient air quality standards, which is 30 parts per billion. You'll see we had peaks of 4,000 plus per minute of hydrogen sulfide. Next slide, please. But what's most concerning to me is not that these acute events take place, it's the long-term health exposure to this very toxic gas, which is hydrogen sulfide, of my constituents. As you see, there are days where we have, upwards of 15 plus hours per day where we're chronically being exposed to this toxic gas. Next slide, please. Now, it's not just this toxic gas that we're being exposed to. As I said, hydrogen sulfide has a rotten egg smell, and it's what we can perceive. The concern is, what are we breathing in that we cannot perceive, that doesn't have an odor? So based on all of these concerns, the Centers for Disease Control came down and actually did 2 different studies. The Community Assessment for Public Health Emergency Response Study, or CASPER, they surveyed about 190 respondents. And then there was the Chemical Exposure Study that was conducted, same by CDC, which surveyed about 2,100 survey respondents. Key findings are there was a San Diego State University study as well. And they all found pretty much the same thing, that about 70% of people who live in the affected areas, which is tens of thousands of people, are reporting having fallen ill themselves or having a family member who fell ill. Obviously, 92% of them don't even feel safe enough to go out and recreate or exercise or walk their dogs or have their children playing outside because of the chronic health effects that they live with. Next slide. And I'll just add, I don't think I included it in the slide, but the range of illnesses that we have reported to us goes from chronic migraines to upper respiratory ailments like asthma, coughs, and gastrointestinal illnesses as well, like nausea, vomiting, and other GI infections, which is extremely concerning because this impacts the quality of life of all of our residents in South San Diego. So we have a solution. It's a pretty, let's say, low-hanging fruit solution that could begin to mitigate the emissions of these toxic gases. It's an infrastructure fix that we estimate may range between $20 and $50 million to fix. It's that hotspot where I mentioned Saturn Boulevard, that man-made piece of infrastructure that is meant to prevent flooding could be removed, because what it's causing is precisely exacerbating the issue and causing all of these gases to be released because it increases turbulence of the river flow. Next slide. This is a photo of that culvert, as I mentioned. You see two of the pipes of four, which has a bit of a drop there. It's between 5 and 10 feet drop, which if we didn't have that drop, if we didn't have these culverts, accelerating the flow of the river and the riprap below, we wouldn't have this turbulence, which, like I said, would cause the emissions of these gases. Next slide. Yes, and I just said this. So this can address the most concerning, pollutant that we're being exposed to every day. Next slide. So our ask is for this board to consider expediting this fix and the release or allocation of the Prop 4 funding that were allocated to address Tijuana River pollution. We think this is a very unique opportunity. Yes, this is a federal matter, but here we have a piece of infrastructure that could be immediately removed and begin to mitigate the awful exposure of my constituents that are experiencing this on a daily basis. We have children, we have elderly, we have people who are immunocompromised being poisoned by all of these pollutants. And it's such a unique opportunity for us to be able to use this funding to expedite this infrastructure fix so that we can begin to be able to breathe every day. And I think that's my last slide. That's my last slide. Thank you so much for your time and the opportunity to speak before you today and for the work that you do on a daily basis for us. Thank you.
Well, the thanks is very mutual, Supervisor. I really appreciated meeting yesterday, having a chance to connect. Thank you for coming up from San Diego here to address the board to elevate both the emerging science and what we're finding out as to the impacts of the unmitigated flows from Mexico and Tijuana, but just for the leadership, truly, and trying to really zero in on where the most effective dollars can, or where the most effect from these dollars can be had within the community. And so just really appreciate that. I know the legislature just wrapped here over the weekend. And as we've communicated, we're still trying to figure out where that leaves us when it comes to what was, I think a full 46 million was appropriated, if you will, to the board from the bond. But what's still unclear is the pathway we're going to take, if we have to do emergency regs for the APA or not. And so we'll be discussing all of that internally, but do know that I know the regional board, the leadership there has been really incredible, working with you all at the local level to just figure out how we use the authorities and our funding to do the best we can to address something that we really depend on the federal government as partners with here as well. So just thanks for the leadership and thanks for addressing the board this morning. And we'll look forward to following up soon on what our plan is for expending those dollars. So just thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you for
It's
the
good to see
time
you.
so much.
Thank you for that time as well. Thank you. All right. Next, for public forum, we have Jeff Ellsworth, who will be followed by Deanna Nurikambo, Mary Wood, Ray Tahir, and then our last commenter will be Barbara Berrigan-Perea. Okay, thank you, Clerk. Mr. Ellsworth, if you're hearing, we can try to take your comment later in the meeting. And if you're viewing us through one of the webcasts, please do just get on the Zoom platform. Next, we'll go to Deanna Nurikambo, be followed by Mary Wood. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Esquivel and members of the board. Thank you for this time during public comment. My name is Diana Nurikumbo. I'm the mayor of the city of Calexico. The new river that flows from Mexico into California isn't on today's agenda, but for the people of Calexico and throughout the Imperial County and up to the Salton Sea, it's an everyday struggle. The 60-mile-long river, considered to be one of the most severely polluted rivers in the United States, runs right through our community. And for too long, so has its agricultural drainage, industrial waste, garbage, raw sewage, and stench that flows upstream from our neighboring country. Every gallon of polluted water that crosses our border brings dangerous contaminants and untreated waste that makes its way up to the Salton Sea, already one of the most distressed water bodies in our state and in the country. Yet the problem doesn't end there, as the evaporation of the Salton Sea's water is shrinking that lake, and the increasing concentration of salt and the pollutants from the new river have become airborne, releasing toxic dust into the air that travels far beyond Imperial County and even into the Los Angeles area. Therefore, the new river isn't just a Calexico problem, nor an Imperial County problem, but a California problem that demands our continued attention. For decades, the city of Calexico has been waving its hand, asking for federal intervention, but we've received no response. Our city is not a coastal city, nor a large city that garners federal attention. However, we are a small city that is a large gateway into our state and into our country, with over 16 million vehicles that cross our border and through our city every year. We are like the spleen, an organ in the lymphatic system that plays a critical role, but goes unnoticed until it's no longer there. Our community doesn't have the luxury of hiring lobbyists or cutting big checks to get attention. What we have are hardworking families, and at the same time, children walking past a river that would never be allowed to exist in any other California city. What we have is grit, and what we have is you, the state of California, standing with us when no one else will. Because if it weren't for California, for our legislator, for leaders like Senator Steve Padilla, Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia, and for this board, Calexico wouldn't be in the conversation. You haven't forgotten about us. You have given Calexico a voice. And without that, we'd still be invisible. We know fixing the new river isn't a one and done. It's going to take a long-term commitment, real dollars, and eventually the federal government showing up like it should have decades ago. But until that day comes, Calexico is counting on this partnership with the state, because progress only happens when you keep us at the table. So my ask today is simple. Please keep Calexico in your sightline. Keep reminding folks that the Imperial County is part of California too, that we also have a cross-border river issue, and that our families deserve clean water, clean air, and the same dignity as anyone else in the state. The close to $50 million that have been appropriated to address water quality problems due to cross-border rivers is the only funding that Calexico and the Imperial County have access to today. That's it. We have several projects to continue to address our issues that are shovel-ready. So I come before you today to please help us help the state in our pollution control efforts. And on behalf of the people of Calexico, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for acting. And thank you for proving that California steps up. Thank you.
The thanks is all mine, Mayor. So very well said, and just really appreciate the partnership I know we've had with the Calexico folks on the New River. It was really exciting to be at that ribbon cutting for the trash screen and the rediversion. I think it's a sign of what is the state's commitment to your point. And so it's not lost on me that the Prop 4 bond dollars are for the border region generally, not for any one of the watersheds. And so, again, we just recently had the legislature pass their direction to us. So we'll be looking at that and look forward to definitely further meeting. I'd be glad to make sure we have a follow-up meeting with you here as well, where we just make sure we're staying in touch and seeing what our timelines are on that funding and what the decision-making looks like before the board here on what the split is, because we very much know that there's a tremendous amount of need on the border region. We want to make sure we get these dollars to both watersheds and have balance there. So thank you, Mayor. Really appreciate good seeing you this morning.
Thank you, sir. Same, likewise.
Great. I will now move to Mary Wood. We'll be followed by Ray Tahir, then Barbara Berrigan, Priya. Good morning, Ms. Wood. It is really good to see you.
Good morning. My name is Mary Wood, and I would like to express my appreciation to the board, executive staff, and Clerk Courtney for giving me this opportunity to bring awareness to the disparities in regulation, policy, and oversights in these small water systems within the state of California. Upon purchasing my property in 2010, I signed a water right and easement agreement, which is basically a water utility agreement. And I became a member of a small, unincorporated, privately owned public water system that serves my mixed-use property, a commercial property and cabin, and 7 residential properties. This contract stipulates a 50-50 rate structure for both dues and special assessments, which we've had special assessments 6 out of the last 8 years. The contract and the residential, I pay 50%, and the residential collectively paid the remaining 50%. A judge determined, or the arbitrator determined, that although it may be fair, I signed it, and that contract will go into effect in perpetuity without a rate study or anything in December, unless I can figure out something and you guys can help me. Also, there are questions about formations of these small associations and complaints and insurance. Insurance, many of the small associations I've talked to, they have no insurance like us. And it can be financially devastating. We had, when the Caldor fire and the King fire went through, we were actually evacuated, and we were lucky not to have serious effects on our infrastructure system. However, if we did have serious problems without insurance, they really do have insurance because I pay 50% of everything. So they were talking about a $28,000 tank replacement in all the pipes. I'd pay $4,000 and they'd pay $2,000 apiece. Again, I guess that's not unconscionable because according to the justice system, it is just a contract, and even though it may not be a fair contract, I'm trying to sell this place, and I can't sell it like that. Of course, I could say nothing, but I can't. I have too big of a conscience. In the absence of the clear legislation, public policy, and regulatory oversight, small water systems like mine can form through informal agreements, and it's got to be changed, or contracts without any laws. Even water laws have to be taken into consideration when they make this, because judges can't decide if there's no regulations to follow, and that's what the arbitrators told me. We have to meet standards of safety, affordability, and state sustainability. Statewide, it is estimated that 2.5 million water consumers belong to public water systems. In addition, an unknown number of the state smalls and stuff. We need more regulation. In closing, I'd like to share a quote from Medgar Evers. "You can kill a person, but you can't kill an idea." As I am battling stage 4 cancer, I do not want my idea, nor my right to safe, affordable, and accessible water to die with me. As water becomes scarcer, water rights, affordable rates and systems, potability issues, and facilities are going to become increasingly scrutinized, and they need to be scrutinized by you guys. It is clear to me that what has worked for these associations is historically is not no longer adequate. So now, as I stand before you, I ask you to accept the challenge and close the gaps in public policy by establishing standardized guidelines, sustainable rate structures, quality standards, regulatory provisions, and complaint resolution methods for all Californians so that they can get their right to safe, affordable, and accessible water. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wood. It's been, I've just really appreciated your voice being so consistent in here, letting us know your challenges. I know with a small private system, I know it's very similar to the challenges that we hear from a number of small systems out there where we have a complex landscape in the provision of drinking water. We have a lot of flavor of different types of systems, and we have been doing our best to make sure how we focus on how we support those small systems, and part of it is governance. And so hearing your experience, having that here for us as a reflection of the work that we need to continue to focus on has been continues to be very helpful. So thank you for elevating your voice here, elevating the challenges you've had with your small private system, and just really appreciate your continued support for the work that the board is doing in this space. So thank you, Ms. Woods. Yes, Board Member Firestone.
Yeah, I just want to add, echo the words of the chair, but also add that one of the laws that passed in past years and was signed by the governor is a direction for us to establish technical, managerial, and financial regulations over systems for the first time. And while that won't address all of the issues, and I think there will remain a gap in terms of state oversight of small private systems, certainly by the CPUC, in terms of the work that we're doing here, at least, I think there is an opportunity and momentum to establish standards that will be helpful, at least in the issues that you address, and certainly won't fully address all of the challenges you faced, but I do think your leadership and voice are important and have reflected a real gap in our state oversight and regulation and challenges within the drinking water system. So thanks.
Really appreciate that, board member, and definitely look forward to following with that work, perhaps specifically, Ms. Woods, so that you can help shape it, help us track it. So thank you. Okay, next, we'd like to hear from Ray Tahir, be followed then by Barbara Berrigan-Perea, and I believe that will be our final public forum commenter.
Good morning, board members. My name is Ray Tahir, and I'm here today, for the most part, to complete my presentation in response to Office Chief Counsel Laufer's response to my 3 questions that were left at question 2. Next slide, please. Okay, question 3 asks if OCC obtained approval from the 2012 State Board to undermine SB 965 by adding 13287, which contained disclosure requirements that denied MS4 and other stormwater permits permissible ex parte communication. Mr. Laufer's response was, the advice I give to the board is confidential, but your question states and assumes things that are flatly wrong. As mentioned in a prior email to you, it was Senator Wright that amended early versions of SB 965 on May 2nd, 2012, to limit the scope of SB 965's ex parte communication to what was colloquially referred to as general permits. My response, yes, several iterations of SB 965, which included 13287, were made aware by Senator Wright, the Senate Environmental Quality Committee, and the League of California Cities. However, it is doubtful that they were aware that 13287 undermined the legislative intent of SB 965, which was to exempt MS4 and other stormwater permits from permissible ex parte communication for the following reasons. Next slide, please. First, they trusted whoever was responsible for crafting SB 965 that it would be consistent with its legislative intent. I think the cities believe that neither the legislature nor the governor's office was capable of deceiving fellow governmental entities. Second, the disclosure model in 13287 did not specifically identify named discharges that would not qualify for the exemption on ex parte communication, nor did it specifically identify enrolled persons. And there was no effort made by the legislature or the state to explain to the public and local governments that MS4 stormwater permits were still subject to AP 4.5, contrary to their expectations. Regarding enrollment permits, Mr. Lawford told me that CII permits are enrollment permits and therefore are eligible for permissible ex parte communication. However, the Regional Board recently released its draft CII permit, which indicated that it is not exempt from impermissible ex parte communication. Mr. Lawford clearly did not do a good job in getting the word out. Third, the above-mentioned notice from the State Board issued December 2012, 2 months after SB 965 was signed into law, said that the prohibition against ex parte communications, APA 4.5, no longer applies to general waste discharge requirements, including MPDS permits, general waivers, and General Clean Water Act Section 401 water quality certifications. Next slide, please. And the final analysis, when the local governments and the public are made aware of this, they will suspect that a bait and switch number was pulled on them. It would seem that the board, in cooperation with the legislature, should take the action to repeal and replace SB 965 and Code Section 13287 with all due haste. Next slide, please. Future presentations. I will present on the 2024 integrated report issues. This was raised before to this board on several occasions without a response from it. The report was based on in-stream water quality data that was not measured against water quality standards, objectives, or criteria because they were never adopted, as verified by State Board staff. Millions are spent on useless monitoring. The absence of exceedances should result in invalidating the 2024 the integrated report, and fails to comply with the LA Ventura MS4 permit. We need to discuss this offline. Next, and finally, administrative petition review. The State Board too easily dismissed petitions based on the operational law argument, which is arbitrary and capricious. In the case of the City of Norwalk's petition, challenging the LAMS4 permit, the petition was dismissed based on this argument while ignoring compelling factors, including the failure to comply with Clean Water Act and state law, and a Superior Court stipulation for RB4 to meet with Norwalk in good faith to discuss issues in its petitions. And that's all I have, and thank you very much.
Thank you as well, Mr. Tahir. Next, we have Barbara Berrigan-Perea. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Esquivel and board members. Before I start, I'd like to echo full support for Mary Wood's comments and her work. Sadly, this morning, I'm here to talk about the way the board has abdicated its efforts to resolve the pending Title VI complaint and federal civil rights litigation into its Bay Delta planning processes and practices with respect to public involvement. The board has gone so far as to remove the Title VI investigation from its closed session agendas. The board's abdication of the Title VI process calls into question its seriousness about racial equity and non-discrimination. It seems that is only reserved as action for certain regions in California, but never the Bay Delta watershed. The board's obligations to uphold civil rights laws do not go away merely because it chooses to ignore them. Furthermore, the legislative efforts of senior staff members directed by this board to actively support a failed attempt to strip CEQA from water quality control planning makes it crystal clear that you do not care for the months of meetings DTEC held with you regarding the Title VI complaint. You actually sought to gut CEQA so that you don't have to prepare a revised SED for the newest plan of implementation to honor tribal engagement, protection of Delta communities, or the public's right to participate in water planning. Additionally, you have ignored DTEC's September 2nd and August 7th requests for an extension to the Bay Delta plan. 19-day extension granted for the September 29th deadline is untenable. Since releasing the revised plan on July 24th, the board has also released 2 new proposed voluntary agreements, over 400 pages of analysis and draft documents, and over 1.7 gigabytes of data released to its analysis. As explained in DTEC's September 2nd request and the August 29th letter by Baykeeper and other NGOs, this information, which commenters must work through to give intelligent comment, more than subsumes the additional 19 days. We want to know how dumping data shows inclusion for tribal and environmental justice communities. How can you expect tribes and EJ community groups to have the same ability to respond to large water districts with their armies of staff, lobbyists, and the governor's political assistance, while we and other NGO partners are in the middle of presenting our case in chiefs and preparing site tours for the Delta Conveyance Project? Please explain, how does this work with equity in the timeline? The shortcoming of public process here is all the more problematic, considering that the board has not responded to public comment on the original draft Bay Delta plan and POI, nor its 2023 staff report and the substitute environmental document. Nor has the board circulated a substitute environmental document for the significantly revised plan as CEQA, which is still the law this year, requires. This board is failing to meet the due diligence standards articulated in its mission. It fails to enact equity for all regions, and it has worked behind closed doors to short circuit the public process. It is time for change. The question is, are you going to make the change, or will the public be forced to make that happen? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Berrigan-Perea. There's a lot I do want to try to respond to your comments, but I want to be respectful to my other board members and the fact that this is public forum and isn't the place that so much of what you've lobbed at the board right now will be responded to. But first and foremost, the civil rights of all Californians, and importantly, the work that this board has done to advance equity is very near and dear. And I hear your points when it comes to the Title VI complaint. As you can imagine, we're in a complicated space right now on many of these fronts and issues. And a lack of response there isn't a lack of commitment to the ongoing work around racial equity and our commitments here as a board. And we continue to move on those things. I think you can see that as reflected in the incorporation of, say, tribal beneficial uses and their designation in the most recent draft of the Bay Delta Plan. we continue to try to be responsive to the space then and the discussion that we had confidentially with you all, which makes it hard to speak openly in public here around our positions and work. When it comes to the requests, they haven't been ignored. They're actually being taken into deep consideration right now. As you pointed out, without the CEQA exemption for water quality control plan updates, something that on the federal side is enjoyed when you look at the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, and its exclusion when it comes to activities in the Clean Water Act when you're looking to improve conditions. As you know, I think in here, again, don't want to try to get too much to unpacking, but when it comes to CEQA, it is a part of the work we do here, but is not where we do our balancing, where we do our public comment, where we have our authorities to make sure that, say, the beneficial uses of tribes are protected. That is all in Porter Cologne. So I think it mistakes sometimes the benefit of CEQA. As you know, say you sue the board on a CEQA case, it doesn't then require the board to come back and make a stronger proposal. It doesn't allow for that sort of balancing. It is simply a disclosure law. So the desire for the board to have that equivalency, if you will, from federal policy on NEPA exemptions for Clean Water Act work, and then the work that we're doing on the California side with Porter Cologne and our authorities was a desire to act with urgency, something that we continue to hear loud and clear from communities. The longer we wait to act on the update of the Bay Delta Plan, the longer communities aren't being protected and, say, the designation of beneficial uses for tribes here be adopted. So that all aside, and the accusations that the board is looking to somehow undermine transparency, openness, and discussion after, as you laid out, having a lot of process already here before the board means that we're in a moment where we're having to figure out where we're going. And so again, I appreciate your comments. The Bay Delta Plan is a huge commitment here of the board for many reasons. And ultimately, we look forward to making sure we articulate where we're going here and hear the note on how busy everything can feel here, and want to be very respectful. So thank you, Ms. Berry and Perea. Continue to extend an olive branch. Please do. Would love to meet and discuss outside of public forum. I think there's a lot of commonality, if nothing else. Thank you. All right. Well, that wraps up public forum, I think. And again, really acknowledge all our public forum commenters. Thank you for your time in addressing the board. There's a lot out there, and the more that we're able to hear from folks, the more we're able to better do our job. So thank you. That now brings us to our first item of board business, which is adoption of the board meeting minutes. Looking to fellow board colleagues if they have any adjustments on those meeting minutes. Otherwise, I think we might be prepared for a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the meetings.
I'll second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call the roll call vote?
Board Member Morgan,
Aye.
Board Member Firestone,
Aye.
Board Member McGuire,
Aye.
Vice Chair Diadamo,
Aye.
and Chair Esquivel.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. The board meeting minutes are adopted from the September 3rd board meeting. That now brings us to our one uncontested item, item number 2, looking to see if it is still uncontested. Okay. We did have someone sign up to speak, but it doesn't sound they're currently on the platform.
In addition, I'll note, Chair Esquivel, that the individual signed up for if necessary.
Okay, that's helpful then, because I think we should just go ahead and proceed, unless any board members would like to pull it. And thank you, everyone, for the good work on the item. The fact that it is uncontested means that it's been well prepared, so thank you. Looking to fellow board colleagues.
I move adoption of item 2.
I'll second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call the roll call vote?
Vice Chair Diadamo,
Aye.
Board Member Morgan,
Aye.
Board Member Firestone,
Aye.
Board Member McGuire,
Aye.
and Chair Esquivel.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. The vote is unanimous and the item is adopted. Again, appreciate everyone's good work on that. It now brings us to the next 2 items from our Division of Administrative Services. We'll have our yearly fee discussion. And now my 8th year on the board, just always look forward to our fees discussion, especially this year's actually, because I think folks may be
Good
Good
morning,
morning.
Chair.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. My name is John Russell. I'm the Deputy Director of the Division of Administrative Services. With me today are David Ceccarelli, the Chief of the Revenue and Fee Branch in the division, and Serena Liu from the Office of Chief Counsel. I just have a few introductory comments today before I let David get into the bulk of our conversation here. And then just to cut to the chase, we're not proposing to raise any fees this year. Although the expenditures are slightly higher this year and most fees should have a 2 to 3% increase, we have a higher than average fund reserve for all of our funds this year. And I'll get into why that is in a minute. But we're proposing to use that fund reserve to offset the fees for this year. There are, however, a few minor budget or a few minor language changes, and David will go over those. And one of those changes will result in some very minimal fee increases to one of the tiers in our fees, but David will get into that as well. And then just as a 10-second budget reminder, last year we had two drills that we were going through. One was a vacancy drill, where we were reducing approximately half of our vacancies, approximately 100 vacancies. And then the other was an approximately 8% reduction in our operating budget. Combined, those were about a $65 million reduction. And our fee or our fund reserves are higher because the implementation of those two reductions has been kind of on a slow rollout. The general fund reduction part of those reductions have been fully taken in this current year's budget. But as you know, most of our budget is related to special funds. We have very, very minimal amounts of general funds. And the special funds, when I refer to those are essentially our fee funds, our fee-supported funds. So they are still in the budget for this year. They are in a control section. When we went into the legislative hearings, the budget hearings last year, the legislature wanted a little more time to look at those special fund reductions and potentially negotiate some of them with the administration. Those negotiations and discussions are ongoing. We expect them to be resolved sometime around January or so. But in the meantime, even though those allocations are in our budget, we have been refraining from spending towards them because we don't want to get ourselves into a real huge deficit by spending money in those funds and then having it suddenly go away potentially. So that reduction in spending and holding open quite a few vacancies has resulted in, again, a higher than usual fund reserve for most of our funds. And then finally, I don't think I've ever said this before in the 10 years or so I've been doing this, so which is a severe oversight on my part. But I do want to acknowledge the staff that work on this issue in the fee and revenue branch, and quite a few of them are in the audience today. They can raise their hands. But obviously, every year you hear from David and I, and we're sitting here, and we're just the public face of this. All the behind the scenes heavy lifting is all due to the staff throughout the year. You know, once we get through the fee adoption, there's obviously the issuing of the invoices, processing of the payments of those invoices. And then there's a lot of strategic planning and thinking that goes into our stakeholder meetings. You know, what issues do we want to talk about with the stakeholders? And again, that's not just David and I deciding, let's talk about topic X this year. We listen to the stakeholders. We hear what they want to hear, and then based on some of the analysis we do, we say, oh, it's probably time we look at this fee. It's getting out of date, or real world conditions have changed enough that we need to reevaluate it. So I did want to
and can I just interrupt there and just plus up that acknowledgement. Again, these last years being here at the board, seeing the process, we're incredibly open and transparent. We're doing our best to be able to justify and help folks understand. And I know it's very difficult for our staff in the discussion generally because it's all about how you split the pie. There are deeper discussion folks want to often have around, policy choices or where the programs are going. And so even there, just have been really thankful for just the openness and the transparency, because it is hard to go hat in hand to the folks we regulate and say, pay us for the pleasure of regulating you. And it requires a certain touch, and you all in the program have been incredible at figuring that out and just continuing to build that trust, which is not a given. And so everything that we have there in the program is thanks to the trust you've been able to build. So just thank you.
And so finally, we had hoped that this year, right now, the meeting that we're in would be the time that we would have had a chance to accommodate all those reductions and bake them into the fees. That's not happening this year, so it'll probably happen next year. So I guess that's just a heads up that we're in a couple of odd budget years. You know, money is kind of here, but not really here. So next year we'll have the data that we need to figure out how all these reductions are going to affect our fees. And with that, I'll hand it over to David.
Good morning, Board Chair and fellow board members. My name is David Ceccarelli, as John mentioned, Chief of the Fee and Revenue Branch within the Division of Administrative Services. Next slide, please. And then next slide, please. Today's presentation is basically discussion on our stakeholder outreach, proposed fee changes, comments that we received, and then questions. Next slide, please. So in general, we host 3 general stakeholder meetings every year. These meetings correspond with iterations of the governor's budget. So when the January proposed budget comes out, we host a meeting shortly after that, which was on March 6th. The May revised in the middle of May, which then we hosted a meeting on June 11th. And then finally, the enacted budget roughly around July 1. We hosted a meeting on July 31st. And, you know, as John mentioned, you know, these meetings are for us to engage with stakeholders, again, to be transparent about our budget process, about the fee impacts, and definitely there was a lot of discussion this year on the back and forth with the budget and those impacts to our funds, and listening to the stakeholders on, you know, staff providing some options about being able to subsidize and offset the need for slight fee increases by utilizing the fund reserve. And again, listening to stakeholders' concerns and based on all that, you know, we're basically able to drive this process of a stakeholder process, which helps us lead to us taking these proposals to the board for your consideration and adoption. Next slide, please. So basically, at this point, we have we're proposing 3 adjustments to our fee structure. We're proposing the following updates to the fee schedule to improve clarity and better reflect the current practices. These first 2 are impacting the sections for our water quality certification program. And the first one basically is update the wording to clarify that the amount of fee will be based on the fee schedule to affect the fee schedule in effect at the time the invoice is issued. This clarification moves language currently found only in the footnote into the fee schedule table, which is addressing repeated inquiries from the applicant. So it just puts it out up front so everyone kind of understands how to calculate the fee. And then secondly there, we're changing the title for these categories from special flat fee to activity special fee. This update better reflects the evolution of these categories and associated fees, providing a more descriptive and accurate label. Next slide, please. And basically, this impacts these 2 sections here. This is more or less, you know, kind of doing kind of an internal audit of our calculations of fees. We noticed that there was a discrepancy, an error on the calculation. And so what we're doing is we're on construction projects and for linear projects that basically hit the cap of our fee, and which is based on, so adjust the maximum fee to $11,311, which sets the maximum disturbed acres at 200 acres. The previous maximum fee of $11,223 equaled 198 acres. And so we've determined this discrepancy. We're missing out on basically 2 acres. And so we're adjusting a calculation. It's an adjustment of roughly $88. And it would impact roughly about 134 projects currently. And of course, these are our larger projects. 200 acres is the actual cap on the general permit for the construction projects. However, of course, a lot of these projects are greater than 200 acres. And so again, we're just cleaning up the structure here and fixing this error. Next slide, please. And it looks like we didn't. There was a point during my presentation when I mentioned comments. There were no comments received by the closing period, so nothing to address. And at this point, I'll open up the questions.
Many, many thanks. I don't know. I personally don't have any questions. I look to fellow board colleagues at the dais if they do. Not hearing any off the bat. We do have a few commenters, and so we can go to them. We have Bob Gore, Rosario Cortez, and Spencer Sachs. Hi, Mr. Gore. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Chair, and fellow members. This comments for items 3 and 4 on behalf of the cities of Woodland, Antioch, Fresno, Santa Cruz, Long Beach, Modesto Irrigation District, Kings entities, Kern County Water Authority, Shafter Wasco ID, Stockton East Water District, San Bernardino Valley Metropolitan Water District, South Coast Water District, and the California Association of Wine Grape Growers. In a word, thank you to the board and to John Russell, David Ceccarelli, Cassandra White, and their team. First of all, for conducting those 3 fee pair workshops, which are immensely invaluable in transparency, in ongoing ideas, and of course, fees. We've reached a common understanding this year and a direction. And I might add for the board, this may be a prudent investment given that the Department of Finance general fund sweeps are continuing and likely will escalate in the face of anticipated $20 billion general fund deficits. The fee payers, or the ones I know, look forward to more close collaboration in the fall to continue to enhance water quality and supply while containing costs. We will be having discussions with the Division of Water Quality. And also, I'd like to remark briefly on the rollout yesterday of the final draft CDFA regulatory realignment study. This is part of a long-standing and productive collaboration with the Division of Water Quality, led in part by Brianna St. Pierre, and can be a major step forward in innovating, coordinated between agencies, oh my gosh, reporting and compliance. The details are up on the web and we can discuss them at a later date. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Gore, and thank you for elevating the work. I have got a chance to get briefed on it and really excited by the concepts and I think the follow-up that we can have on that. So look forward to implementation of the recommendations that were developed. I think they were well heeled. So thank you. All right, now I'd like to call up Rosario Cortez. Good to see you.
Good morning, Chair SWRCB, members of the board. Rosario Cortez, Manager of Regulatory Affairs for Water Reuse California. Thank you for allowing me some of your time. Water Reuse California would like to acknowledge the Division of Administrative Services, their staff for reaching out, engaging stakeholders, including an additional lengthy stakeholder meeting with us and our partners, CASA, in July. And during that meeting, staff took a minute to walk us through the nuances relating to the budget process. And as we've heard this morning, it was an odd year. So we'll just leave it at that for those of us who are more intimately involved with that and what goes into developing the fees. So appreciate the transparency in light of the budget realities. And we really appreciate just, again, that outreach and the engagement, and particularly at the staff level. We appreciate that the fee regulations that are before you today for approval were revised from the draft version, and that were shared with stakeholders back in July. We thank this board and the staff for keeping the fees at the current level, which are, we feel, appropriate and given especially the high level of reserve. So that's been projected for this fiscal year. As always, we look forward to continuing to work with board and staff to ensure that the funding for water recycling programs is sufficient while keeping fees as affordable and reasonable as possible. And thank you again. We look forward to the continued dialogue with you as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cortez. Appreciate your partnership in all of this. Yeah, it's been a complicated year. It's been a lot. So thank you. And let's like to call Spencer Sachs.
I'm a little taller than Rosario. Good morning, Chair and members. My name is Spencer Sachs on behalf of the California Association of Sanitation Agencies. I just wanted to take this opportunity to, first of all, thank the staff for all of their great work and for meeting with us during the stakeholder process. I'd like to echo the comments of Rosario. We greatly appreciate the time that you and your team took to meet with us and kind of explain the process and what was going on behind the scenes. And as you are very well aware, affordability is a big issue, and that's something that we, take very, with pride of trying to maintain affordability. So dipping into the fund reserves to help keep the fees at a reasonable rate, we are greatly supportive and appreciative of that. And so with all that in mind, we appreciate this process, and thank you for your time.
Thank you as well. Thank you for those comments and for the engagement in the process and here at the meeting, Mr. Sachs. All right. Looking to fellow board colleagues. I think we may be prepared for a motion.
Great. I'll do the honors on this one. I'll move to adopt item 3.
I'll second.
Thank you both. We'll see if we get a motion so fast when we raise fees next time. Ms. Tyler, can you please call a roll call vote?
Board Member McGuire.
Aye.
Board Member Firestone.
Aye.
Board Member Morgan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Diadamo.
Aye.
Chair Esquivel.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. Vote is unanimous, and the resolution adopting fees is adopted. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item number 4, which is now our water rights fees discussion.
Good morning again. Again, I'm John Russell. With me is David Ceccarelli, and joining us is David Rose of the Office of Chief Counsel. Everything I said before on the water quality fees is still relevant, so I won't go over that again. The only thing I did want to note is it's not related to water rights fees, but before you, there will not be an agenda item for either water or drinking water fees or ELAP fees that you normally hear, and there were no changes to those two, so everything is the same as last year, so there was nothing to bring to you. Again, there's no fee increases proposed for the water rights fees. It's just some cleanup, language cleanup, and I'll let David get into that.
Good morning. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Our staff presentation, basically, again, stakeholder outreach, proposed fee changes, and then finally questions. And again, there was no comments on this agenda item. Next slide, please. So similar to, again, our water quality meetings, we hosted 3 water rights fee stakeholder meetings with the alignment of the governor's budget. Again, with the proposed budget, the May revised, and of course the enacted budget. Next slide, please. And so as I just kind of mentioned with water quality, similar here, we're proposing the following updates to the fee schedule to improve clarity and better reflect the current practices. The first one is to amend the regulation text to better clarify how fees are imposed for requests submitted prior to a permit being issued, to split into separate permit applications, requesting authorization to divert 40,000 acre-feet or more per year. This change does not impact how fees are assessed. Secondly, we had several sections that referenced the Board of Equalization, so we're updating that existing reference to the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. Next slide, please. And let me just highlight on the bottom bullet there is we're as normally we do every year, we're increasing the cap on fees for water right change petitions involving a transfer of water pursuant to, of course, the following water code sections. And this adjustment is based on the Consumer Price Index, which is an adjustment of 3.05%. So the cap would go from $674,481 to $695.52. And currently, none of the projects are hitting the cap at this point. And then to talk just a little bit about the top bullet there, we're providing a temporary, our proposal is a temporary suspension of our Federal Energy Regulatory Commission fees during pre-licensing phase. So the proposal is to temporarily suspend fees when a notice of intent has been filed, but a draft or final license application has not been submitted within 5 years. So basically, once the 5 years or the 6-year hits, fees would be suspended. Now, of course, after that, if a draft or final license is submitted, then we would reactivate the fee. Just a little bit of background and rationale. This change responds to a discussion with the San Diego County Water Authority and the City of San Diego regarding a project. It's the San Vicente Energy Storage Facility. At this point, this proposed suspension would only apply to this project. The project has faced delays due to funding challenges, and FERC requires a NOI to maintain the project status. Suspending the fees during inactive periods helps address concerns when projects stall and no license application is filed within 5 years of an NOI. Next slide, please. And again, that's our end of our presentation. And at this point, we'll take any questions.
Any thanks? No questions for myself. Looking to fellow board colleagues. Seeing none. We do have a number of commenters, and so we can get to those. First commenter will be Bob Gore, be followed by Nina Kuzmich, then Dan Denham, and Takoa Kadara. Okay. Oh, yeah. He said this was going to cover number 4 too. So, all right. Well, that means we'll go to Nima Kuzmich.
Good morning, Chair Escobar and members of the board. My name is Nina Kuzmich, and I'm Director of Engineering at the San Diego County Water Authority. I'm here to express my support for item 4 on today's agenda regarding the temporary suspension of annual fees for the FERC licensed hydropower projects that are in development with extended timeframes. As staff mentioned, the potential San Vicente Energy Storage Project is one of those projects experiencing a prolonged development timeframe. This potential project is a partnership between 2 public agencies, the San Diego County Water Authority and the City of San Diego, to utilize our existing infrastructure with the existing San Vicente Reservoir for a proposed pump storage facility that could generate up to 4,000 megawatt hours of energy per day. This potential project has been under evaluation since 2015, when a notice of intent was filed with FERC. However, due to budget limitations of 2 public agencies and the uncertainties in the energy market, this potential project has had a long development horizon. Earlier this year, we engaged with Water Board staff to evaluate the options related to these water right fees. I want to express my appreciation for the collaborative dialogue with Water Board staff and their openness in evaluating opportunities to save ratepayer money and enhance water affordability on projects with extended timeframes. I also want to commend the Water Board staff on their process with the water rights fees stakeholder meetings and their willingness to receive feedback and engage in dialogue on the numerous issues they evaluate. The change proposed by Water Board staff for consideration today will allow for suspension of fees when projects extend beyond a 5-year timeframe between the notice of intent filing and submission of a license application. This temporary suspension of fees will provide financial relief for our proposed project and for ratepayers across the state. I encourage you to adopt the proposal, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate the engagement, Ms. Kuzmic. And next, I'd like to call up Dan Denham. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Escovel and members of the board. Good to see all of you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Dan Denham. I'm the general manager at the San Diego County Water Authority, and I'm here today to, of course, express my support for item 4 on today's agenda regarding the temporary suspension of annual fees for the FERC licensed hydropower projects in development, like the potential San Vicente energy storage facility. Before I go to that, I just want to note my appreciation for Water Board staff as they have considered these changes to water rights fees for FERC projects. Well beyond the specifics of our project, I think that the recommended change will save ratepayers money and enhance water affordability, which is, as you all know, a critical issue across our state. The change proposed by Water Board staff allows for the suspension of fees when projects extend beyond the 5-year timeframe between notice of intent filing and the submission of a license application. It's our opinion that residents should not be penalized while these important projects go through a development process that, as my colleague explained, takes much longer than usually expected. So the temporary suspension of fees will provide financial relief to our proposed project and ratepayers across California, and we encourage you to adopt the proposal. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you as well, Mr. Denham. It's good to see you. Thanks for your leadership out there and engagement on this. And you have very common sense, I feel, adjustment to it with real benefits to you all. So thank you. Appreciate it. Next, and our last speaker will be Tekoa Kadara.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Tekoa Kadara. I'm a third-generation leader in Allensworth. The community of Allensworth is the first and only Black-owned and funded town throughout California's history and has faced systematic discrimination and historic challenges and emergencies around water. I've been invited to speak on the Sigma fees. One of the problems that our community is seeing with this is rural communities like Allensworth are disproportionately burdened. The current fee structure unfairly penalizes small farmers and vulnerable communities while allowing large landowners who have extracted, overpumped, and subsided and degraded the land to continue with fees that may hurt their pocketbooks but doesn't completely discourage their practices. The large landowners profit by exploiting the soil, the water, the air, and walk away with the equity, leaving rural communities like Allensworth poisoned and destitute. The impact of Sigma's framework right now, instead of helping communities like Allensworth, will harm Allensworth and other rural small communities and small farmers. Fees reduce the capacity of small farmers and rural communities to survive while doing little to change the destructive behavior of industrial agriculture. This perpetuates a cycle of inequity, environmental damage, and community decline. So the solution that we're offering is maybe some reform of the fee structure, increase penalties on those who have caused the damage, large landowners who break the rules, exploit the land without compassion for life or the environment, and minimize fees for farmers who are implementing regenerative practices, demonstrating responsible land stewardship. Support transition towards regenerative agriculture that mimics natural systems and honoring indigenous traditions, and positioning communities like Allensworth as an example on how to conserve water, regenerate soil, and heal both the land and community. We want to show California a new path from farming as extraction to agriculture as stewardship. And this is about healing the land and healing our communities and doing it together. Thank you for my time.
Thank you for addressing the board here, Mr. Kadara. It's good to see you. Appreciate your continued leadership. I know when it comes to our Sigma fees, we'll be having a discussion for those basins that are under board peer review and potentially being assessed fees and how we kind of structure that. So we'll definitely be taking that into our discussions. What I know as well, though, is the majority of those fees are being decided at the local level by GSAs. And so just appreciate you elevating your points here to the board. I think they both apply certainly to the board, its fee structures, and to others out there. I think we need to keep an eye, continued eye on how we maintain and support small growers among knowing that, you know, I think as we see even say on drinking water systems, there's different levels of capacity and access to resources. So just thanks. I appreciate those points and thanks for addressing the board today.
Thank you.
Okay. Looking to fellow board colleagues, if there is any further discussion, questions, and I think we're prepared for a motion.
Well, I'll just use this as an opportunity to plus up Chair Escobar, what you just said, and thank you, Mr. Kadar, for your comments. I really look forward to maybe a more robust discussion in this next round of stakeholder discussions. I know that there were some thoughts that staff put forth, but I think that really what we need to hear from is all the different groups that are involved, agricultural groups that would be facing these fees through SGMA, looking at various fee structures, but also just looking at really what we absolutely need. And I know that you all were good in bringing a proposal to us a few years back with a reduction. And so just really appreciate your ongoing review of what is necessary, because I think that there's probably going to be a lot of questions from community members. As the chair said, you know, there's all these other local fees that the GSAs have. And so the layered fees on top of irrigated agriculture fees and other fees that the farmers face. So just really look forward to that discussion. And with that, I will move, well, unless there are other comments, sorry, Chair.
I think we're good.
Okay, with that, I'll move adoption of item 4.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
I will second and just add, I'm also looking forward to that discussion and just really want to myself just better understand, and I should say, if you all can help my memory of what the state board fees all are for small growers, and so that I would like to follow up with Allensworth and make sure that I'm able to have a discussion with them on what is coming from, what is the state board fees, and that so I better understand the state board fees and the local fees, and then also just as we have these discussions, want to make sure that we also, especially myself, have an understanding of what fees are also being set by the GSAs on top of our fees, perhaps, to small, ag, and so that we can see that large picture of just fees on top of fees that are being added on to communities such as Allensworth. And so that when I am talking to communities such as theirs, I am able to have that picture and help them to understand where these different fees are coming from. And also as GSAs come in front of us, able to have that conversation of how this bigger fee structure is being implemented.
Make sure we get with OSGM staff, Office of Sustainable Groundwater staff, and anybody who wants some information on that. Thank you.
Was that, I'm sorry, was there a second there as well? Sorry.
There was.
Oh, I didn't hear, sorry. Then, Ms. Tyler, can you please call a roll call vote?
Vice Chair Diadamo?
Aye.
Board Member Morgan?
Aye.
Board Member Firestone?
Aye.
Board Member McGuire?
Aye.
And Chair Esquivel?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. The vote is unanimous and the resolution is adopted. Again, thanks everyone. Appreciate it. We'll see what next year's fee adoption looks like, but this was a really great one. Thank you. All right, that now brings us to item number 5, which is just board member reports. And I don't know if any member is ready already. I need to pull up my own calendar.
I can start. I'll provide on September 10th. I had the honor of going up to West Lake Tahoe for the grand opening of the regional water treatment plant. So the facility is going to first serve the McKinney-Quell community. And so that was the first community that they were looking to serve. And so the community was being served by it was basically aging infrastructure and aging well. They were looking to provide a new system. And so they actually had a temporary interim system in place, but it actually ended up being in place for 20 years. And so they're very happy to celebrate this new system with the intake from actually Lake Tahoe. It is a regional facility because over the 20 years, they actually started to acquire some additional small privately owned systems in the area. So it is now going to be a regional system. They're looking at bringing 2 small privately owned communities online here soon. They're just a third system. They are in the process of acquiring it and bringing it, improving the infrastructure there because it's also aging infrastructure. So they're really looking at regionalizing the west shore of Lake Tahoe, getting tongue-tied. And so this is West Lake Tahoe area. And so it is just really an honor to go up there, talk to everyone. It was really great. Instead of being a ribbon cutting, they had the first sip. And so they provided everyone the first sip of drinking water from their facility. And so that was funded with a $20 million low-interest loan. And so that concludes my report. I'll let Chair Esquivel speak to the other.
Actually, with that introduction, the one report I have was just yesterday, Board Member Morgan and I, along with Director Joe Karkowski, were in Antioch celebrating there it was, I guess it was like a lever turning for the desal plant. So it was great. It was hard to believe that it was 3 years ago that we were last there with the governor announcing the water supply strategy and for a hotter, drier future. So when we were there last, it was a shell of a building and still in the middle of to be completed. And now it was great to see a fully functioning facility. We provided $60 million in a low interest loan at 1.4%. As we know, it's a significant savings for the community when it comes to being able to build. So it's great to be there. It was great to celebrate. Always nice. I know a number of us have all been up and down the state at this point for ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings. And it's great to just see the years of work to get these projects in and funded is going on. Also have to note, we just did our year-end wrap-up for the last fiscal year. We were able to get $2 billion out last year. This board, since 2019, has got out $13 billion here in the state of California. So we have a lot to be proud of. Means there's a lot of groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings to come. And so just really thankful for the leadership out there that actually brings those projects to fruition and we can be part of. So that wraps my report. Board Member McGuire.
I have nothing to report except to say that way back when I was still an actual engineer, I worked on that West Lake Tahoe water treatment plant project, and I can appreciate how long it's taken to get that project realized and across the finish line. So really excited to hear that it's finally in operation and serving to that community. Awesome.
No report. Thanks.
All right. I think that wraps board member reports then, and brings us to the end of today's component of the meeting. We have tomorrow our current hearing for the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. We will go into closed session. So it's 10:30 now. We don't have our room that has, natural light until noon. And so we can hold off on maybe doing closed session with the AHO until noon. I don't know, Mr. Loffer, if you heard from Mr. Ziegler, we can do personnel session maybe like at 11 or so, or even now, but.
So I've not yet heard back, but I would suggest, I'm sure we can get a hold of him. And so I would propose, and I believe Mr. Oppenheimer indicated that he'd alerted him it could be an early closed session for that item. So I would propose that we convene at 10:45 or 11, and that will be in conference room 2510 for the personnel item.
Okay.
And then the board will meet on all the AHO items that are identified in the closed session, and that will occur subsequently.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. And we can alert folks if we adjust and we don't do closed session. In that case, we'll simply meet at noon and 25:40.
Correct.
And then otherwise we'll plan to meet, let's say 10:45 and 25:10.
Okay.
All right. And so we will be adjourned until tomorrow morning. And so we'll see you all tomorrow morning and we'll be in closed session here soon. Thanks all. Thank you for the good board meeting today.